All right, my dear, whenever you're ready.
Hello, everybody. So most of you already know that the woman of the hour is right there. Okay. And every time I work with the Bad or Bar Mitzvah, I always tell the family, give me music that you want, and it doesn't even have to be Jewish music. So she did make a Jewish selection that will be included, but Kate's a Swiftie, and I figured, why not make like a Swiftie Nagoon here? So I chose one of my favorites here, and with some help from some of our other friends in the synagogue. So if you know this melody, please sing along with me, and if you don't, then here's your education to Taylor Swift. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. La, la, lie, lie, lie. And that part repeats. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. La, 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 lie. Lie, 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 da, 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 die. Lie, 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 da, 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 die, die. Lie, die, die, da, 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 die. Die, 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 da, 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 die.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is such a special Shabbat tonight. We have so many things going on. Of course, we're going to be celebrating Kate Hunter's bat mitzvah along with her family and all of her community and friends. But we also have a gathering tonight of what I call the Rainbow Connection Havurah, the 20 and 30 somethings. They have their own little gig going on after services. So it feels very energized. It feels wonderful. And of course, what we do here at Congregation, what we do here at Congregation Kol Ami is we start, as I like to, with community. So I'd like to hear about the good and blessings that are happening in people's lives. So in this particular case, I think we'll go to the right side and start over this way. And anybody have a good and blessing they would like to share with the community? Toby.
Yes, I've had a friend visit me this week, Nan Raphael. She was a member of the Army Band for 25 years. If anybody has any questions about the Army Band, just ask Nan, the ONA. She's leaving tomorrow, but we've had a wonderful time together.
Fantastic. The visitation of friends is always a blessing. Yes, my dear.
Recently I got back from a trip to Europe.
Very good. All right. Anybody else on this side? Yes.
Got back from a trip to Jeddah.
To where?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. All right. It's a great place to live, but I wouldn't want to visit there. Having lived there. So what brought you to Naptown?
There's that big gaming convention called JCon.
I totally didn't know that while I was living there. Okay, I missed out on the glories of Indianapolis. Well, thank you for sharing. Anybody else on this side? Richard?
Well, it's a projection for tomorrow. Tomorrow night is the best opportunity to see the Perseid meteor shower.
Oh man, my wife will love that, except that it is basically as hot as the inside of a dog's mouth at night. But given that limitation, that's pretty exciting. We'll try and see what we can see. That's wonderful. Anybody else over here? Let's move towards this side. Anybody have a good and blessing to share? Yes.
There's 3 last days of school now.
Yeah, oh gosh. Yeah, I'll take it. Whatever. A doctor.
My dad had some surgery on Monday, but he's recovering really well. So
Nice. No, there is a special Jewish blessing, the Gomel, which is said when we recover from a risky situation. So that's great. Anybody else on this side of the room? Yes, Michael.
Finally
You're back. We sent you to Italy and you came back. All right, that's a testimony to something. I'm not sure exactly what, but we're glad to have you. All right, anybody else want to share a good or blessing? All right, well, I have to say, strange as this is, my good and blessing this week is Graham. Graham, stand up for a moment. All right. So the reason he's my good and blessing is for 20 years now, for 2 decades, when I prepare a bar or bat mitzvah student for their day, I have a couple of gotcha questions that I ask just to amuse them and to stimulate their thinking. Graham is the only person who was able to answer both of them on it. Never happened before in all the years I've trained bar and bat mitzvah families. Have a seat there. So all I can say is it's all downhill from here. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, with the joy of having you all here and for us to be together, it's time for us to get Shabbat started. Of course, Shabbat is a process, so we work our way in there. And we begin with the lighting of candles, and it's my privilege to invite up Brandy to kindle our Shabbat lights. For those of you unfamiliar with our prayer book, we're going to be on page 1.
In the beginning, when the Spirit of God hovered over the darkness, God's first creation was light. As we kindle these Shabbat lights, we attest to the majesty of God's work and rejoice in its beauty. Light is a symbol of divinity and creative goodness. It is the outward sign of that inner spark, which God has granted each of us. In hope and with love, we now welcome Shabbat with light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivyanu lahad likner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Yasher koach, my dear.
Do you want to finish reading?
Yes, please, you keep going.
Praised are you, Adonai, whose presence fills the world, who hallows us with mitzvot, and inspires us to kindle Shabbat lights.
May God bless us with Shabbat joy. May God bless us with Shabbat holiness. May God bless us with Shabbat peace. Amen. So, for those of you who are familiar with our normal routine here at Congregation Kol Ami, we would be doing Psalm 95 and Psalm 96 at this point as part of Kabbalat Shabbat. But tonight, we're going to go off program just a little bit. We're going to go to page 27 for Shalom Aleichem, the traditional medieval poem to welcome the angels of peace. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boahem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barhuni LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Seidhem LeShalom, Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We'll We'll turn back to Kabbalat Shabbat, to page 5, with Psalm 99. Psalm 99. Ramimu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Together in English. It is you who establish equity, you who works righteous judgment in Jacob. Exalt Adonai our God, and bow down towards God's footstool. God is holy. Exalt Adonai our God, and bow down towards God's holy mountain. For Adonai our God is holy. And now we're going to chant Psalm 29.
Havul Adonai bnei Elim, Havul Adonai kavod ba'oz, Havul Adonai kevod shemo, Ishtahavu Adonai bechadrar kodesh, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
Ascribe to Adonai, you children of God. Ascribe to Adonai his glory and strength. Ascribe to Adonai the glory of God's name. And worship Adonai in the beauty of holiness. May Adonai give strength to this people. May Adonai bless this people with peace. We come to the end of Kabbalat Shabbat with Lecha Dodi on page 7. We welcome the Sabbath into our midst. I am going to look around the room and I'm going to call on Brian and I'm going to call on Helena to be our ushers to welcome the Sabbath at the final stanza. For our guests, we stand in Jewish tradition during that. So, Shalom Aleichem, Lecha Dodi on page 7.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, bnei Shabbat שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד הוא שמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. להדודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נשואה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. להדודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך ומיורי, אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת פעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תהמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, להדודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
So come to us in peace, you crown of your husband, with rejoicing and with joy. To those who are faithful, a treasured people, come, O Shabbat, come, O bride. We're going to turn now to page 9 with the Hatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה, לעלמא דברי הידותי וימליך מלכותי, והיכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפעל וירומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל, שמי קדושה בריהו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן.
I'm now going to belatedly invite our bat mitzvah up to lead us in prayer. We're going to be on the Baruch Hu on page 10.
Please stand if able.
Baruch Adonai ha'amra le'olam va'ed.
Baruch
Ta Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'toro ma'ariv arvim bokeh v'nechim utvuna v'shaneh itim u'macharif et hazmanim u'msader et hakokavim b'mishmerotehem barakia k'rotzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei hoshech v'hoshech mipnei or Umavir yom umevi laila, umavil ben yom ben laila, Adonai tzivaot shemo, El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv arabim.
Unending is your love for your people, the house of Israel. Torah and mitzvah, laws and precepts have you taught us. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and rejoice in your Torah and mitzvah forever.
Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life and the length of our days, and then your love shall never depart from our hearts. Blessed is Adonai, who loves the people of Israel.
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך,
Please join me. You shall love Adonai your God with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your being. These words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart. Teach them diligently to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be a symbol before your eyes. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on the gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. So shall you dedicate yourselves to your God. I, Adonai, am your God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I, Adonai, am your God.
So, do you want to just do the Hatzi Kaddish right now again? No. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we continue with Emet ve'emunah. Emet ve'emunah kol zot v'kayam aleinu ki hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ein zulato ve'anachnu Yisrael amo. True and enduring, beloved and precious, awesome, good, and beautiful is this eternal teaching. This truth we hold to be forever certain. Adonai is our ruler, the rock of Jacob, shield of our salvation. Adonai, our God, you redeemed us from Egypt, and you set us free from the house of bondage. For this, the people who felt your love sang songs of praise to you. Living God, high and exalted, mighty and awesome, who humbles the proud, raises the lowly, who frees the captive, and redeems the oppressed, who is the answer to all who cry out. All praise to God Most High, the source of blessing. Like Moses and Israel, we sing this song of rejoicing. Michamocha.
Mi hamma haba elim Adonai, mi kama haneder bar kodesh, norate hiloto sefele, norate hiloto sefele. Malehute hara uvane habokea yam lifnei Moshe, ze Elianu ve'amru, ze Elianu ve'amru. Adonai himlo leolam ba'em, Adonai himlo leolam ba'em. Lai 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 lai.
Grant that tonight we lie down in peace, Adonai, our God, and raise us up tomorrow, O Sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace, guide us with your good counsel, and for your name's sake, be our help. Shield us from hatred and plague. Keep us from war, famine, and anguish. Subdue our own inclination to evil. O God, our guardian and helper, our gracious and merciful Sovereign, give us refuge in the shadow of your wings. O guard our coming and our going, that always we have life and peace. We praise you, O God, whose sukkah of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. We turn now to the tefillah prayer. If you are able, please rise.
Adonai sefakat yiftahu fi ha'gita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips and my
Vishamru. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We're going to be singing Vishamru on page 21.
Please hold. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד תהי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Great say. Adonai, our God, show favor towards your people and lovingly receive our prayers. May the worship of your people Israel always be acceptable to you, for you alone do we hold in reverence. And we give thanks to you, Adonai, our God, the God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our lives, the shield of our salvation in every generation. And we thank you and we recite your praises. Let all the living affirm you and praise your name as the God of our salvation and help. Praised are you, Adonai. Goodness is your name. All praises to you. We're going to close out this part of our service by singing Shalom Rav, and then we're just going to take a few moments of silent time. You may make your own offerings of the heart or reflections as you need.
Shalom Rav al Israel am hatasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel am hatasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lehol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lehol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Israel am hatasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel am hatasim leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et am ha'Yisrael bechol leit uvechol shah bishlomeha. Shalom Rav al Israel am hatasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel am hatasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. You might notice that sounds a little different. So, as we're in August now, I figured it's about time to start introducing some of the High Holy Day melodies, just so we're not totally surprised by them when they actually come up, right? So this is the Oseh Shalom that we do around the High Holy Day time. And now if you hear it at the services later in September, you know what to expect. Oseh Shalom, Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, ve'imru amen. Oseh Shalom, Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, ve'imru amen. Hu yaseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel, amen. Oseh Shalom, Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, ve'imru amen. Ve'al kol Israel, amen.
All right. I want to take you back in time, back in space. I believe we would be talking about the spring of 1931. It would have been Ithaca, New York. A young man, a candidate for a bachelor in science and chemistry. My father was studying and preparing to earn his degree and graduate in 1932. But before he could, he had to take scientific German. There was no way around it. In the 1920s and 1930s, if you wanted to be a chemist or a physicist or anybody in the physical sciences, Germany was the leading place for that material. Every month, new articles and bulletins about advances in chemistry and physics would come out in German. And so he was required to take this course. So he did. He took it in the spring of 1931 and totally failed. So with a little more trepidation, in the fall of 1932, he retook the class and failed. So things were getting a little anxious at this point if he was going to graduate as planned. So in the spring of 1932, my father took scientific German for the third time and got a D, which he assured me was absolutely a gift from his professor to just get him out of the classroom. I tell you this story because if you look at the story of Robert Oppenheimer, J. Robert Oppenheimer, one of the odd peculiarities of this man, who was born into a Prussian-German family and who got his PhD in physics about the same time, around 1932, in Germany, would always tell his contemporaries that he neither spoke nor read German. Why he felt the need to do this is an intriguing thing. It's part of Oppenheimer's need to deny any foreignness about himself, and certainly to avoid having to talk about the fact that he was Jewish. He was born in 1904. And as I said, both of his parents were from Prussia. He grew up in New York. He received no Jewish education. Instead, the Oppenheimers belonged to something way back then known as ethical culture. Now, ethical culture was created by a Reform rabbi. And in fact, I don't think there was anybody who belonged to ethical culture who wasn't Jewish. But that was not what it was about. It was about assimilating. It was about representing the best of modern culture and absorbing it and adopting it and thereby nullifying the foreignness that comes with being Jewish. He grew up, we are told by one of his biographers, he grew up in a family that was very successful and therefore felt like they had a lot at stake, a lot to protect and a lot to hold on to. And showing their Jewishness was just not part of that equation. It seems like that success changed their relationship to their heritage and Judaism. Now, it's interesting that that is very much a snapshot of what the experience was for many, many immigrant Jews at that time. That Judaism and being Jewish actually placed a significant onus or burden upon them. He completed his studies at Harvard, which was very hard to get into as a Jew in the 1930s, and then went to Cambridge, where he tried to murder his professor, Professor Blackart, who was a very important physicist in the field of radar. But then Oppenheimer decided he wanted to pursue the most advanced physics going on at the University of Göttingen in Germany, and that's where he got his PhD. Upon getting his doctorate, he returned to the United States, bringing the most advanced physics of the time to the American system, where he ended up at the University of California, Berkeley, at the California Institute of Technology, which would eventually become known as the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, precisely because so many other universities across America, however distinguished they were, had no interest in a Jewish faculty member. But in California, you got to do things a little differently, all right? He was actually told when he tried to get a position for a friend that, hey, we've already got one Jew on the faculty, we don't need two, all right? After establishing a very strong academic presence and bringing the most modern of conceptual physics to America, Oppenheimer's career changed forever during World War II in 1941, as we all know, because we've all seen the movie, right? Everybody, how many people have gone to see the movie? A few of you. You should see this movie. This is a really amazing movie, all right? He was recruited to be in a government project and would eventually become the scientific director of the Manhattan Project, all right? And this, of course, leads eventually to the creation of the atomic bomb. Throughout his life, Oppenheimer experienced episodes of depression. His longtime friend Isidore Rabai, also a Jew, also a physicist, but as it happens, a Jew who was much more comfortable in his own skin and felt very comfortable identifying as a Jew. He felt that the struggle that Oppenheimer went through was often a denial of his Jewishness and a denial of his Judaism. Rabbi believed that Oppenheimer's refusal to acknowledge his Jewishness led to feelings of isolation and identity issues. So it's remarkable that, in fact, this man would become one of the pillars of what has been called the Jewish century. All right. According to a biographer, Oppenheimer often pretended the anti-Semitism which he encountered frequently didn't exist, dismissing the discrimination that he experienced both academically and professionally as if he were immune or above such affronts. He also tended to ignore slights made towards his Jewish colleagues and brush them off. However, when the Nazis took control of Europe, Oppenheimer began feeling rage towards the denigration and stripping of rights of Jewish people in Germany and beyond. I had, he said, a continuing, smoldering fury about the treatment of Jews in Germany. I had relatives there, and it was later to help in extricating them and bringing them to America. Between 1934 and 1936, Oppenheimer also donated 3% of his salary from teaching to fund German physicists, many of them Jews, fleeing from Nazi Germany. But the disturbing developments overseas motivated Oppenheimer to do more than merely donate money. When World War II began, Oppenheimer joined the Manhattan Project, and they started their work. In 1943, he became the director of Los Alamos Laboratory, the creepiest city in New Mexico. Having grown up in New Mexico and known friends in Los Alamos, it is a weird, uncanny place, even to this day. I assure you, you should definitely visit. The only town I've ever been in where I couldn't get a Coca-Cola because the shipment couldn't get in. All right. He was hardly, as we know, the only Jewish scientist who felt compelled to join. Notably, of the chief eight physicists working on it, 6 were Jews. And the project's ranks included hundreds of other Jewish scientists, soldiers, and technicians, both American Jews and numerous Jewish refugees who fled from Hitler's Europe because Jews were not welcome, and oddly enough, physicists were especially disdained. Their ranks include Hans Bethe, Otto Frisch, John von Neumann, James Frick, Edward Teller, Rudolf Perls. Many of them had immigrated to the United States after being invited to conduct research at top universities in what would become components of the atomic bomb. For instance, Frank, the Jewish physicist, and the Jewish physicist Eugene Wigner began their work on building a reactor at the University of Chicago. For those of you who are curious, the first operative nuclear reactor without any containment was built in downtown Chicago. All right. Hungarian-born Leo Szilard, a Jewish refugee who also joined the Manhattan Project, is often recognized as the creative genius behind the bomb due to his role in initiating that reactor at the University of Chicago. Szilard and his colleague Fermi, who was not Jewish but his wife was, and therefore he was forced to flee Italy, patented a nuclear reactor design. Szilard was also the one who persuaded Albert Einstein, a pacifist German Jew who fled Germany when the Nazis took power, to co-author the famous letter to Franklin Roosevelt to warn them that there is the potential to make this extraordinary physics bomb that they needed to be aware of, and initiated the Manhattan Project. But it wasn't just the Manhattan Project. In the development of radar, code decryption and translation, radio communication, so many of the scientific processes going on in World War II, the involvement of these and other Jewish scientists was not only an act of survival, but also a pivotal contribution to the Allied victory in World War II. And it was, in fact, as we now see in retrospect, the coming out of the Jewish century, which had been going on for 40 years before. Following the war, Oppenheimer was appointed chairman of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, its General Advisory Committee. In this role, he underscored that the atomic bomb was instrumental to ending the war and sparing thousands of lives, but needed to be carefully regulated in the future. And he urged the U.S. government leaders to encourage international control of nuclear power and to find ways to limit countries' stockpiling weapons, arguing that atomic weapons posed an extreme and unique danger for future warfare. This, interestingly enough, put him on a collision course with another prominent American Jew, the ambitious and influential Louis Strauss. It's interesting that it is exactly in these kinds of places where we find Jews with different American visions fighting with one another. The same thing happened in the episode of the various Red espionage trials, where often the judge was Jewish as well as the indicted individuals. Judais's stance on a potential nuclear arms race, in addition to his previous association, not surprising during the Depression, with labor unionists and communists, Oppenheimer lost his security clearance. This judgment was later mitigated before his death through public recognition by the Kennedy administration, and posthumously was completely overturned in 2002 when the government recognized Oppenheimer as one of the great American patriots of the 20th century. Why Jews? Why physics? Why science? 1/3, I said that 45 represented the coming out of the Jewish century, but it had been going on for quite some time. 1/3 of all the Jews who received a Nobel Prize between 1904 and 1940 were awarded to Jews. Post-war Jews dominated science in American universities. The Jewish century rode on the shoulders of what Nazis had disdainfully called physics, a Jewish science. Relatively little of the preeminence in science and scholarship can be explained very simply. Now, there was a guy named Thorstein Veblen who wrote in the 1970s that it was the marginality that fostered Jews to a greater capacity and went on to achieve everything they achieved. However, he ignores the cultural circumstances of communal Jewry. For example, the emphasis on literacy and the failure to deal with all the Jewish economic issues, especially coming out of the Depression. Jews looked for places to thrive and achieve. The weakness of his thesis comes especially apparent when we study the most intellectually successful Jewish communities in the history of the diaspora here in the United States during the 8 decades of their prominence. The question of intellectual prominence actually has to be separated from simply the idea of marginality, because we also managed to succeed in the world of film, in the world of finance, in the arts, and in the leadership of the Bolshevik Revolution. We were everywhere. The separation of the study of Jewish Nobel Prize winners from other cases of Jewish success, I think, mystifies the question of the Jewish intellectual achievements of the past century. Many factors were involved, but actually we should not forget the force. Because remember, in physics, there's the strong force and there's the weak force. I don't know whether it was a strong force or a weak force, but something that held them all together was, in fact, Judaism. Now, a later PhD, a PhD in metallurgy, a Russian by the name of Edward Shifrin, set out on a spiritual quest to understand Jewish success and culminated in the publication of a book about 10 years ago called From Infinity to Man. It's an attempt to marry Torah and science by showing that Kabbalistic understanding of the cosmos squares with the most comprehensive modern concepts of quantum physics. He began to study it. He turned to philosophers, Jewish philosophers like Saadia Gaon and Maimonides, but it was in Kabbalistic thought he found what he felt was a symmetry between Judaism and science that helped shape the Jewish century. The Kabbalists created an elaborate system to explain how the universe was sustained by divine energy flowing from an unknowable Godhead. And in his book, he uses concepts such as information theory to recast Kabbalistic insights into scientific terminology. The motto on the cover of this book says, "In the beginning, God created information." He writes, "I tried to prove if we dig deep into Kabbalah, we can find similarities in ideas of the physics of the 20th century. And indeed, the ideas of quantum physics and general relativity that emerged in the 20th century were very Jewish precisely because, and I think this is a great phrase, it overturned common sense. Because common sense physics had been explaining everything up to that moment, but then it ceased being able to explain everything that was being observed. So what was required when you met something like a particle in two places simultaneously, or a particle that was simultaneously a wave and a particle, you had to think like a Jew. The peculiarities of the universe continue to challenge scientists to find plausible explanations for them. For example, one theory popular among some is that our universe is just one among many, and that we are just lucky we happen to be in a universe that supports life. But of course, the idea of a multiverse the rabbis spoke about almost 2,000 years ago. So, is Judaism the source of modern scientific success? I can't say that it is. I can't say that it isn't. But it clearly has been a factor in helping Jewish scientists to think outside the box, whether it's a box with a dead cat or a live cat, and to simply be able to conceive of what might otherwise be inconceivable. And the result of that has been what many have called the Jewish century. I hope you all go see the movie Oppenheimer. I think it will open your eyes to an extraordinary time and place in American history and also in American Jewish history. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. All right, it is time for our announcements. And our officer tonight is that guy. All right, Bob, Mighty Bob is our announcements. Here we go.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Let me start by congratulating Kate on your big weekend. I'm looking very forward to being here with you tomorrow, and so I'm sure it'll be beautiful, and we're looking really forward to it. So just a few announcements tonight. For those of you who haven't already, religious school is about to start. It'll start on August 20th. If you need to get your kiddos registered, please go ahead and get that done as quickly as possible so we can make sure we're prepared for the first day of classes and have everything set up for all the kids. You can register on the website, and if you have any questions, just give me a buzz in the office. Our gift shop will be holding a back-to-school sale on the first day of religious school, so on August 20th. There'll be a sale table where all the items are 50% off, and everything else in the store will be 25% off that day. So if you need any Judaica, this is the time to show up and do a little shopping. Just so everybody's aware, Tikkun Olam is no longer gathering up the pill bottles, so please do not bring them to Bob, because then I don't have anything to do with him. So we do appreciate all the donations, and so everyone's aware, we shipped off hundreds, if not thousands, of pill bottles while we were doing that program, so it turned out to be a really fantastic thing, so thanks to everyone for that. And then the final thing, many of you may already be aware, we have changed our ONEG process this year. And so now we're allowing people to sign up on their schedule versus trying to pre-schedule folks. And it seems, knock on wood, so far to be going a little smoother for everybody and giving everybody a better chance. So if you're interested in hosting an ONEG, please get out there and sign up on the website. And if it's something you're not going to be available, can't bring food, but you still want to host, you can do that monetarily as well, and just use our general donation and make a $40 donation. If you do that, please go ahead and sign up for the ONEG so we can be sure to thank you for the one that you're hosting. And so that's all of our announcements for this evening. And that brings me to the Misha Bayrock, where we want to say a prayer for anyone in need of healing. And so first, before I read the names that we have here, let me go around the room to see if anybody needs to add anyone.
Michelle Herring.
George.
Susie Jacobs.
Hank Webb, Susie Cornwood, Howard Hall, John Deneen, and Brenda Hefner.
Okay. Randy.
Mia Hood and Judy Blazer.
Okay, Tanya.
Tiffany Kazan. Martha Greenberg and Harold Greenberg.
Okay. Anyone else? And the congregation would also like to include Joyce Bloom, Natalie Bovino, George Cavanis, Mark Davis, Francine Feingold, Larry Fine, Joe Friedman, Carolyn Goodman, Deborah Goodman, Michelle Griffith, Molly Kalig, John Kaufman, Deb Kaufman, Laura Koenig, Alex Koenig, Al Landon, Matt Levin, Chuck Lewis, Phyllis Lorelli, Fran Maestri, Steve Meyerdirk, Seth Myers, Mal Miller, Anthony Maria, Jack Nygren, Paul Redwood Jr., Helen Rubel, Adrian Sandler, Dale Seaver, Rick Tabor, Susan Tabor, and Happy Waterman. So if you would please join us in singing the Misha Bayrock. It's on the back of your program and also in our purple Siddur.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi shebera imotenu mekor Abraham lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
All right, now is the time for my mysterious selection of people to come up and open the ark with me at the Aleinu. Not so mysterious tonight. I'm going to invite Kate and her family to come on up and open the doors to the ark. Come on, 2 of you on one side, 2 of you on the other. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise, page 82. Go ahead and Aleinu l'shabeach Adon HaKol, Lateichu la'Yosef Reshis, Shelo asanu goyei ha'aratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, Shelo sam chelkeinu bahem, ve'gor aleinu kechol ha'amona, v'anachnu chorim u'mishachadim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu, she'hu noten shamayim v'yoser haaretz, u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim ima'al, u'shinatu zo v'govei meromim, u'Eloheinu Enoch, emet malkeinu efes u'nato, kakatu b'torato, v'yadata hayom v'hashevotam elevavecha, ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim, b'shamayim ima'at, ve'al haaretz mitachtat yeho. Bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. And now it's our time to think about, as we do every week, those individuals of the past on whose shoulders we stand, the people who have died but who have made us who we are. As we think of them, we meditate upon the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. I begin by asking, is there anyone here observing Shiva, anyone who's lost a loved one in the past 7 days?
David Heron.
Thank you. Here at Congregation Kol Ami, we're thinking about these people who have passed away during the Shloshim in the past month. We're thinking of Selma Metzger Harden, Joe Armon, and Robert Hardwick. Is there anyone else mourning for someone who's died in the past month? For our yard sites this week, we recall lovingly these individuals connected to our congregation. Rebecca Applebaum, George Aubin, Modi Essens, Catherine Hart, Barbara Hoffman, Sally Motero, Joel Persky, Stephen Sapolsky, and Leonard Yutkin. Is there anyone else observing a yard site this week?
Sarah Clark.
Thank you. The memory of all these people are here with us now. We honor them and we think with sympathy of those who mourn for them by turning to page 85 and rising if able together for the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah ve'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael bagalal ubizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ulamei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha b'rithu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbakata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'rium amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'mroma Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace, who makes peace in places far beyond our understanding, make peace for those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. And let us say, Amen. Have a seat, folks. So in our particular minhag here, we're going to do a song that the bat mitzvah is going to appreciate. And so this is the Jewish classic love song by
artist.
Taylor Swift. All right. So is it love song?
Normally,
love song?
Love Story, which is old school Taylor Swift.
All right.
So I was very glad for that. And normally I try to kind of make some, it's like, yeah, this is totally Jewish, right? When somebody chose AJR, it's like, hey, those are Jews. We can work with that. Taylor Swift is not. But yeah, we talk about love things in Shabbat, right? We talk about the Sabbath bride, and we talk about, sometimes we sing something from Song of Songs. So sure, it's in that vein, right? So if you recognize this, please sing along with me. We were both young when I first saw you. I close my eyes and the flashback starts. I'm standing there on the balcony in summer air. See the lights, see the party, the ball gown. See you make your way through the crowd and say hello. Little did I know that you were Romeo and you were throwing pebbles, and my daddy said, stay away from Juliet. And I was crying on the staircase, begging you, please don't go. And I said, Romeo, take me town for a little while. 'Cause you were Romeo, I was a scarlet letter, and my daddy said stay away from Juliet, but you were everything to me. I was begging you, please don't go. And I said, Romeo, take me somewhere we can be alone. I'll be waiting, all that's left to do is run. You'll be the prince and I'll be the princess. It's the love story, baby, just say yes. Romeo, save me, they're trying to tell me how I feel. This love is difficult, but it's real. Don't be afraid, we'll make it out of this mess. It's a love story, baby, just say yes. Oh, 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 oh. I got tired of waiting, wondering if you were ever coming around. My faith in you was fading when I met you on the outskirts of town, and I said, Romeo, save me, I've been feeling so alone. I keep waiting for you, but you never come. Is this in my head? I don't know what to think. Hey, now to the ground and pull down a race and marry me, Juliet. You'll never have to be alone. I love you, and that's all I really know. Talk to your dad, go pick out a white dress. It's a love story, baby, just say yes. Oh, oh, oh. 'Cause we were both young when I first saw you.
I want to remind our guests that the service is not over till you've eaten a cookie, so you have to stick around for oneg. And our Havurah will be meeting in the back of the building after we've done Kiddush. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Come join us in the social hall.